Hello to our viewing audience. I have the honor and the privilege today to hold a very special interview. I am representing Gospel International online publication. If you would like to find out more about Gospel International, all you have to do is go to www.gospelinternational magazine, which is the publisher is the illustrious, renowned Dr. Joyce Logan, a veteran in the industry, and I'm so proud to be able to work with her. We also have other features in our magazine. This particular feature that we're doing today is entitled Their History. And it's by a man that's very prominent in the city of Los Angeles. He has great notoriety. He is one of our veteran, one of our most respected within the gospel industry here in Los Angeles and nationally as well as internationally. And that's none other than Dr. Prez Blackmon. And so today, Gospel International Magazine will be featuring him in a segment called Their History, and which we will have the opportunity and the privilege to talk with Dr. Prez Blackmon. Let me first start off saying that one of the reasons I am so honored and privileged to be able to do this interview, Dr. Blackmon, is because number one, I'm in the historical studios of KTYM that's been serving the community since 1958.
Right.
Then, which was the year that I was born. Also, I know you can laugh. Also, not only KTYM being so historical, but it is the place where I received the tutelage and the mentoring by yours truly, Dr. Prez Blackmon. He taught me how to operate in a studio, a radio studio, taught me how to work the board, and he was very hard. You were very, yes, you were. You were very hard, and you would not allow me to take notes because you told me I had a brain. So use it.
That's right.
Use it. But I thank him very much because of him, I was able to not only operate in the studios of KTYM, but later on I was able to go and work with the ICN network, an online radio network, which is the International Christian Network, and I was able to go to other places, and it's all because of you. So let me first of all start by saying thank you, sir, and I'm so glad to have this privilege.
You're so kind. I am honored to be here as we return home for you and I, back here on the corners of 68 and West Boulevard. It's a blessing.
Yes, it is a blessing. And for those of you that are viewing this this segment, I want you to know that Dr. Blackmon has chose to stay COVID compliant by keeping his mask on through the entire interview. But he did give me permission. He allowed that I'm not wearing my mask. I do have one and I do wear it, but I'm not wearing it during this interview so that you can hear me more clearly, but he will choose to keep his mask on the entire time. And so I love it. It has a microphone and it has Dr. Prez Blackmon on it. But let's get right on into the interview. First of all, Prez, I think that people would like to know, where are you from originally?
Born in a little place called Eudora, Arkansas, years ago, and of course from there things just went on from Eudora, Arkansas to Indiana.
Okay. An Arkansas man.
That's it.
All right. So you haven't always been in Los Angeles?
No.
And like in your family, your siblings?
I have, 8 brothers and sisters? Really it was 9. 2 are deceased now. And everybody's in Indiana, except for the ones that expired.
Oh, so all of your family now is in Indiana?
With the exception of my 2 wonderful children, Prez and Nikki, they're here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, who is Perez II is a wonderful artist, recording artist, his own self.
Right.
And then you did share with me at one time that your daughter, Nikki, that she is a great singer also.
Nikki's a very good singer. Nikki chose to, she wants to be in the announcer arena. That's why you would always see her on the Lee Williams concert, and I would use her as my co-MC.
Okay, okay. Now, I was very surprised to find out that at an early age, you had a speech impediment.
I had a speech impediment so bad, I couldn't say 3 words in a half an hour. And it was only because of the good Lord that I took a speed reading course at the University of Notre Dame, and then the rest became history.
So you suffered with a speech impediment from your childhood on up to you went to college?
From when I was born up until 1964, 65.
Okay, one would never think by listening to you now that you suffered with a speech impediment, and it was like stuttering. You stuttered so bad that you could hardly get words out.
Right.
And so how did you correct this speech impediment?
A young man by the name of Professor Tom Musical at the University of Notre Dame took me into a hall called O'Shaughnessy Hall upstairs, where they had a student radio station, and I wanted to be a radio announcer, but I couldn't talk. So what they had is they had a little machine, and they would put a script in this machine, and it would go by for X amount of seconds, and you had to read a line. And once you read that line completely, then they would speed up a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, until you would honestly become able to break that impediment and then continue to project words and a sentence and a phrase and a paragraph, and the rest became history.
Okay, so that lets anybody that's watching right now, that lets you know that you can overcome any condition, any speech impediment, or any problem, health challenge that you may have, if you have the desire and if you have the want to overcome. Because you had a desire to be a radio broadcaster. Is that correct?
I did.
And of course, many people would have heard you and listened to you and said, no way, son, find something else to do, get another talent, because you never be. But you never felt that.
No.
You never felt. You always felt that you could overcome that speech impediment. So now we move on up to Notre Dame. Was that your career choice? Was that your only field in education that you were pursuing?
Yeah, I wanted to be a lawyer, believe it or not. But at the same token, I was moved by, with the grace of the good Lord, from all of the years of growing up in the South, such groups like the Mighty Clouds of Joy and the Soul Stirrers, and I wanted to be a radio announcer. And at the time, Sergeant Shriver and Eunice Johnson, the Office of Economic Opportunity, had a piece at Notre Dame and American University, and I pursued this, and the rest became history.
Okay, so your one desire, you wanted to be a lawyer, but you couldn't talk that well.
No.
But you were going to defend people.
Right.
Okay, and then you went into radio broadcasting.
Right.
All right, now, in the midst of that, you also did some time in the military.
I did. I served my country, excuse me, honorably, with the most elite unit, like Reverend Tom Blackwell, whose studio we're in right now, KTYM, United States Marine Corps, and that was United States the best. The Corps has always been the best. Let's just, hurrah! You understand? When you are Marine, you are Marine. Simplify.
Simplify.
Simplify. Always faithful.
Always faithful. But you didn't go there by choice. You got drafted, right?
I was almost drafted when the draft was going out. There was a letter came home to me in Indiana and says, "You are hereby ordered to report to your nearest AFE's office for induction to the United States Armed Forces." So naturally, I saw the dress blues, and that just blew all of our minds, and so I chose the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And then from there, went to Chicago and applied, and went through all the paperwork details, and then from there back to South Bend, and then next thing I knew, I was out here getting ready to head for Southeast Asia.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of travel. Let me back for a minute. You started out in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
From Arkansas, went to Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
From Indiana, you came to Los Angeles, or you went to Chicago?
No, Chicago and Indiana, which South Bend and Chicago is just like Watts and Long Beach.
Okay.
It's just a few minutes apart.
Okay, just across the street from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And from there, you came to Los Angeles.
Came here. Mm-hmm.
You came to Los Angeles. Let's back. And I know we're doing quite a bit of traveling, but you have to remember that we're dealing with Dr. Fred Blackmon.
Oh, you're too kind.
Okay. So, but when you went in the Marine Corps and you served in there, something also happened in the Marine Corps. You, I think in our previous conversations, you said that your plane, not your plane, your helicopter
Mm-hmm.
got shot down. But during that time also, besides serving in the military, you were training for the Olympics.
The 1972 Olympics in Munich, Germany, I had a dream and a desire to run because track and field was my favorite sport. And of course, back home, having a record in the Northern Indiana Valley Conference, I wanted to come out here and I wanted to run for the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, we got called over to Vietnam before it happened, and my helicopter was shot down December the 19th, 1970, and then the rest became history. My desire just went down the tubes.
Okay, your desire for being an Olympian.
Yeah, because I had to have surgery after the helicopter was shot down on both legs. Then the rest, I just didn't have a desire to compete anymore after that.
Okay, so we almost had Dr. Blackmon almost became an Olympian because you were going to be running in the Olympics. It was before Carl Lewis, right?
Right, before Carl Lewis, yeah,
Okay.
72. And it turns out they had a civil unrest in Munich, Germany during the time of 1972, so that was zeroed out right there.
Okay. All right, it keeps getting more and more and more interesting. Now, how long did you stay in the Marine Corps after the injury, the helicopter being shot out, and then you having surgery on your legs? How much longer did you give the Marine Corps?
I gave them maybe another 2 years, and then after that, my whole tenure was 6 years, 2 months, 13 days, 8 hours, 5 minutes, and 50 seconds.
Thank you, Dr. Blackmon. That goes to show you never forget that experience.
No, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, French Protégés out of Hawaii, and I am proud to say that I served my country honorably, decorated with a Purple Heart, and the rest is history.
And the rest is history. Okay, now, after Marine Corps, then is when we go in to broadcasting, correct?
Correct.
And how did that journey begin?
That journey began just before 30 days after my surgery was completed, and I felt well enough. I sent out letters because I had a choice of staying in California, going back home to South Bend. So what I did, I sent out letters to all of the different studios to get a job. That was number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then a gentleman by the name of George Cochran at CBS, Fairfax and Beverly, he received my letter and he called me up for an interview, and he told me, he says, we don't have any job openings here. He said, but I do have a girlfriend at NBC, and let me give her a call. So by the time that I got back to Camp Pendleton, he had kept his end of the bargain. And by me working at NBC after graduating from AU and back to ND, the rest was history. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You carrying us you giving us the speed course here. Speed course here. Now, you were in California.
Yeah.
You were stationed at Camp Pendleton,
Right.
which is located out by San Diego,
Right.
California. Okay. Then you were writing. You sent out letters.
Right.
And in all of the letters that you sent out, a man named
John Cochran from
John
CBS.
Cochran from CBS
Mhm.
received your letter.
Mhm.
But then he recommended there wasn't anything available at that time, right?
Right. At CBS.
And so he recommended you try NBC.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you go to NBC.
Mhm. Well, he made a phone call for me for NBC because I was in the Marine Corps and I had X amount of days to get out. And because of the Purple Heart, I guess it meant a lot to him. He valued my time in service. So he had a friend at NBC. It's like, you know somebody that I know somebody, and he knew somebody.
Mhm.
And so the lady that he knew granted him that request to interview me. And so by the time I got back to Camp Pendleton, I had to turn around and then come back up to Los Angeles, and I interviewed at NBC, and then from NBC, the rest became history as a cameraman.
Oh, stop right there now. Okay. Now, when you got to NBC, you interviewed as a cameraman.
Right, right.
A cameraman. Now, for those that may not know, because we just cannot assume that our viewing audience know about CBS and NBC. Well, CBS is one of our local, well, not local, national television stations. In California. Well, I know I can speak for Los Angeles. It's Channel 2, and NBC is Channel 4.
Correct.
So now we're dealing with the television station. So you go to NBC and interview for a cameraman behind the scenes. Now, what shows were you as a cameraman? What shows were you working on?
In the 70s, to prove the point, Jess Marlowe, NBC News, Brian Gumbel was part of NBC, even Pat Sajak, he was part of NBC. And then as I proved myself to be worthy as a cameraman, they put me on they call the big money shows. Sanford and Son, Flip Wilson, Peyton Place, Days of Our Lives. These were the shows that paid the money. And Navy, Local 53,
Okay.
the union.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, what did a cameraman, how much was a cameraman's salary at, what year was this?
This was in 1972.
Okay.
And of course, it was all depending on the union and your union status. You understand?
And how many black people did you have working the cameras then?
There were two, matter of fact, a guy named Steve Cunningham and Andy Levert. These were my two mentors here, and the rest became history.
Okay, so you became number 3. Huh?
Yeah.
All right. Working on the shows such as Sanford and Son,
Yeah.
Days of Our Lives,
Peyton Place.
Peyton Place.
Yeah.
Peyton Place was a very popular soap opera.
Yeah, exactly.
Soap opera at that particular time. I mean, it was almost like it was the edgy part of television, which now it would be nothing. It would be nothing now with what goes on television now. So now you become a cameraman, and then what happens?
I wanted to pursue the microphone broadcasting, so I talked to several people about, different shows on the air at the time, and so I was told that the best way to do it is produce your own show. That way you're not limited, you're not bound, you're not tied in, you do as you please. Get sponsors and the rest becomes history.
Okay, but to get sponsors for those kind of shows, I mean, like at that time, I remember that was sponsors like Tide detergent and Joy dishwashing liquid and VO5, and so you had to go after those particular sponsors.
I went after those, and negative because it didn't occur. Because it had to be, I didn't know the ins and outs under the table that you needed to have contract representation.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So therefore, there were little local shops around the city like Murray's Cafe and Jones Brothers Auto Parts and these kinds of businesses here that was able.
Just a minute. I have to let our viewing audience know. We are going back in history. If there's any millennials watching now, or even any of the younger generation, these names may not seem familiar to you. That Dr. Press Blackmon is talking about. Some of these names are not familiar to you, but he's going to get to the familiar part. But those from my generation and further back, these were popular people, and this was the happening in Los Angeles. Okay.
And of course, my main sponsor, besides Murray's Cafe, was at that time the oldest black-owned operated mortuary in Southern California, Ashley Grigsby Smith and Williams Mortuary, located at 9920 South Central Avenue in Los Angeles. The late Miss Geraldine Ashley Woodbury was the owner and proprietor.
Yeah, of course, we remember Ashley Grigsby.
Yeah, well, that was my main sponsor when I started producing radio shows on my own, and then the rest became history.
Okay, now did this usher you into voiceovers and gospel, or where did it lead? What path did it lead you on?
It led me into producing my own style of radio, coming in from an R&B platform, and which was very, very good at the time because I had some great teachings along the way. Tom Cross and all of the other great jocks, and from that point on there, it just started going.
Okay, so first you started in R&B. Okay, and you're speaking of, you just mentioned a gentleman by the name of Tom Cross.
Right.
And so you were explaining to me earlier through our conversation we were having that there was a difference at that time from, we call them now, on-air personalities.
Right.
But there was a difference from DJs, which at that time was stood for disc jockeys, right?
Right.
And from a person that did radio. And could you explain that, please?
During the days of disc jockey, there was a 45. The 45 had a little round circle, and there was a disc that went inside of it. The engineer was known as a disc jockey, okay? And then from there, if you were very good, then you became a disc jockey and a radio air personality, a radio announcer. You had to be super talented to do both, because at one time, only the disc jockey, he played the music.
Only the DJ.
Only the DJ. And then you did the talking. And then as guys like Frankie
That was
Crocker,
the radio personality.
Right.
Okay.
All the young modern folks would call it now. And then from that point on there, if you became super talented as I taught you, then the rest became history. To become a disc jockey and radio personality at the same time.
All right. So what were the, now you mentioned Tom Cross and you talked about Tom Reed.
The Master Blaster, of course.
Okay, these were people in Los Angeles?
Yes. Tom Reed was Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah. He just passed away a few months ago. And of course you had Tom Reed, Tom Cross, Roland Bynum, guys like that, Jammin' J. Rich. These are old personalities from years back.
Okay. At this particular time, now I'm coming up. I'm a teenager, you know. I'm a teenager during this time. The popular station was KGFJ.
KGFJ.
I'm speaking from Los Angeles area, the West Coast. KGFJ. There was KJLH, which is Stevie Wonder's station now, but then it was only a jazz station, right?
Well, when Stevie bought it, Stevie got it from All Pro Broadcasting, Willie Davis. And then from Willie Davis, he got it from the name KJLH, John Lamar Hill. That's where KJLH came from.
Oh, I thought it was Kindness, Joy, Love, Happiness.
No, they added that on there. But KJLH always stood for John Lamar Hill. He was the owner, the original owner.
All right.
That's where the 102.3 came from.
And then there were the other popular stations were like K-Max.
K-Max came down.
K-Ace.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who else?
KPPC was the Sunday gospel, the late Glory Jean Bell, and I, along with Ruth Dickinson, the Reverend Rogers, the Cure, we were the first African Americans to go on KMAX FM 107.1. When the late Eric North, he started it from an underground rock station back in the early 70s. And they had our personalities like the late Reverend Randy Strickland that had great spiritual productions, and the rest became history again.
Okay. Now, before we move up into the gospel, because we got a lot of history, for those of you that are viewing, once again, we want to let you know this is Gospel International, that we are interviewing Mr. Dr. Prez Blackmon. We're interviewing for a segment of Gospel International magazine known as Their History. As you are viewing, you can tell, and as you listen to the information that Dr. Prez Blackmon is giving, he's giving a lot of history, radio history, and television history as well. Now, for the R&B side, and then we're going to move on totally to the gospel. For the R&B, because you worked in R&B, right? And what was it that you did in R&B?
Basically, as an announcer, as a promoter, that's where I really got my promoting skills from, was in R&B. On my own show that I produced, then I just went into trying to project me and make me a name brand. You understand? And after
Make
that,
you, Prez Blackmon.
a name brand.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was it.
All right, because you are a name brand. You known as sometime as the chairman of the board. All the time you're known as the voice.
Well, that was from an award. Now, how that got started, the late Dr. E.L. Cordley, back in 1975, had an organization called Infinite Success Opportunity and Associates. And he had a...
Could you repeat that again? Just, slowly, because you moving fast.
Well, of time.
I know.
Infinite Success Opportunity and Associates, the late Dr. E.L. Corley. And what he did is he searched for the best announcers in California. And he had an event at the Marriott Hotel. And believe it or not, on that particular night, I won the award, the Mr. Voice Award. And the late Reverend George Washington Easley Jr., he's the one that created the Mr. Voice. It wasn't me. He created that.
Okay. So that was created by the late Pastor George W. Easley.
Right.
He the one started with calling you the voice.
The little man with the big voice.
All right.
And the rest, and then the Reverend Randy Strickland, and then of course Clarence William Kendricks, who was my mentor here at this station, because he was the
here at KTYM.
KTYM. He had prime time in the evening when the horse races at Hollywood Park didn't take over.
Okay. Let's move on. Then correct me up. That right there. Okay. Now, who did you work with in R&B? Because you worked as a promoter and as a radio announcer in R&B. Who were some of the artists that you work with in R&B?
Well, believe it or not, he's now Bishop. Al Green was one of my favorites that I had to say that was my favorite of all time. I hosted for a lot of jocks like the late Johnny Taylor. Tyrone Davis was one of my biggest money makers. And of course, it just went on. Ollie Woodson, the Temptations, it just went on and on and on.
Okay. Now, that is real R&B, real old school music. So those of you that really know old school R&B, you know those names.
Yeah.
Those names are no surprise to you. Those are hit makers.
Exactly.
Right there.
Exactly.
So you did the R&B what, for how long?
10 years.
Okay, for 10 years. Then what made you want to transition from R&B to gospel?
My great-grandmother, Miss Hopi Williams, born November 14th, 1875, reared me, taught me everything between Genesis and Revelation. And of course, in our house, you had to go to church.
Oh, yeah, that's a must.
You had to go to
That's
church.
a must.
And
That
then
was
on
like
Sundays,
breathing.
you could not play, as they call, real and con songs then. And so from that point on there, God had been good to me and had blessed me to come through Southeast Asia. And I wanted to give something out to the people that was going to church, and that I was motivated because of when I read the story between Genesis and Revelation of what happened on Golgotha's hill because of my Savior, then that is what happened.
Okay, now, did that start your tenure here in this studio at KTYM?
Well, it led here. The late Reverend Randy Strickland of Great Spiritual Productions, he had broadcast on KPPC, a station in Pasadena that was only on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that point on there, the late Gloria Jean Bell and I, we went to KMAX. And then when we knew that KMAX was about to fold, Al Williams, who's the owner of this station here, Gloria and I came here and petitioned Al and Mr. Borrego about gospel music here. And Clarence Kendricks was already here. And we wanted to get our names in this building as well also. Mm-hmm. And then from that point on there, then everything just started happening with Gospel Hour Productions that turned into Prayers-gram, and the rest is now history.
Okay, so KTYM was not doing any gospel.
It was only low-keyed because at the same time then, Kendricks, he had the afternoon sold up, and that was it.
Okay.
Because as I said, this was the powerful station for horse and jockey at Hollywood Park. This is where everybody tuned in, was KTYM, to find out
what the horses were doing.
Exactly.
So we have been thinking that KTYM was a gospel station, but it really wasn't a gospel station.
Had not it been for horse and jockey, I think KTYM would have folded up, because horse and jockey made this station here exactly what it is. I mean, bookie joints all over the state, all over the city would tune in to KTYM for the first, second, and third, fourth races at Hollywood Park.
Well, I mean, it's right down the street from Hollywood Park. So,
yeah.
You know, I guess it's no surprise for that. But, okay, so we got gospel on KTYM, which you were involved in. How did it move to the Pressgram? Because you were doing that Saturday night show for how long? You've been in gospel, what, 45 years?
Yeah.
45 years.
Yeah.
That 45 years this man has been in gospel, that we know. First of all, let me say that one of the things of when I met you, Dr. Blackmon, I already knew about you because I had heard about you, your notoriety. Anybody that was somebody had to know about Press Blackmon. I mean, if you were going to be in the gospel field in Los Angeles, within the gospel industry within Los Angeles, any type of quartet singing, if you didn't know Press Blackmon, then you were just perpetrating.
That's so kind of you.
Yeah. You were just perpetrating. So now, when did you move into the Pressgram? 45 years. 45 years that you have been doing gospel.
Pressgram came about in the late 70s. After the late Mayor Tom Bradley, Church Rockin' Bootsy Shepherd started the first Press Blackman's Day in August of 1975 at Sunset Baptist Church at the time. Then the rest started moving along, and we started hosting for a lot of quartet groups around the city of Los Angeles, like the Sweet Singing Cavaliers. Young man that was one of the best guitar players on the planet in Los Angeles is an international recording artist now, my brother Dave Shirley, that started with the Compatible Souls, and then he went on to the Golden Heirs, who I got a chance to produce right at 65th and Normandy, and of course Impurity and Western, and then it just went on and on and on.
And those names that he was just mentioning were names of various quartet groups here in Los Angeles, California. Now, one thing you told me when you were training me in radio, you said there is no such thing as a bad time to be on the radio.
That's
Whether
right.
it's 3 o'clock in the morning, midnight, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you told me, these are your words, you said it's no such thing as a bad time.
That's true.
For radio.
That's true.
And so you, for how many years, came on at 12 midnight on Saturday night, 12 midnight to 1 in the morning, then you moved from 12 midnight to 2 in the morning. For how many years?
30 years.
30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you maintain a captive audience for all those years. Prince Blackmon is the only man I know, radio I know, that can get a VIP, sell a VIP ticket for $50 and will sell out of his VIP tickets and for quartet.
Well, you know, I wish, Dr. Jones, I wish I could take the credit, but I can't take the credit because there is a passage between Genesis and Revelation found in the 19th book of the Old Testament, the book of Psalms, that says, at midnight I will arise and give thee thanks for your righteous goodness and your mercy. And I sold myself on that scripture is because I believe at midnight, which is the ending of one day, the beginning of the next. And from that point on, the good Lord intervened, prayed about it, fasted about it, and he kept us right there. And to go back to your statement, there's never a bad time in radio. It's all about you and how you project. Mm-hmm. As your voice comes across, you make the audience and you put them in your hand. And that's what happened at midnight, is because the good Lord gave me that opportunity to be able to come in and to go and project and to deliver and make you want to listen. It's like your car radio may be on a certain station. Someone may get in your car and your children and turn to a different station, but in that process of turning, if you hear a voice that's coming on, giving you some information, you're going to wait and stop and see what the voice is saying. And then you go to your station. So that's why I say it's never a bad time, because you can make the difference all by yourself.
All right. Well, I'm with this final question here for this segment, because this is a continuing series with Dr. Prez Blackmon. I'm excited with Dr. Prez Blackmon. We're featuring with Gospel International magazine, where Dr. Joyce Logan is the publisher. This is a series and an interview with him. I want to ask you, where is gospel going now? And because you're still going, 45 years in gospel. Now you are Sunday morning on another station here in California. So where is gospel going? And you're still with quartet. You never left quartet.
No. Well, one reason I never left quartet is when you got great personalities and like my late partner Tony Denard, back in the day, Clarence Kendricks, and of course I cannot leave out, icons like the late Johnny Morris, and the one that owns this segment right here, this station, Reverend Thomas Blackwell, who has almost just taken gospel and put it on another planet because of his stacks of gold. Gospel has a great future ahead, and it's all about, personalities training themselves and understanding that it's not about you as an individual, it's about who you represent. And if we can get out the ego, and when I say the ego, that's the ego, easing God out. When you blank that out, then the rest is going to be history.
Okay, and you said personality, and you're speaking of individuals.
Individuals, Reverend Thomas Blackwell, who is a great personality, and of course he's the owner of Stacks of Gold right here in this studio, KTYM, and Johnny Morris, who was one of the greatest icon engineers in broadcasting in Los Angeles, along with the late John Phillips. The rest is now history. Bishop Leroy Lacy. I can go on and on and on and on.
Yes, and we're going to continue on and on with.
And if I might interject, the owner of this wonderful broadcast, Dr. Joyce Logan, long before she became Dr. Joyce Logan, we had an organization called Region 6 Gospel Announcers Guild of America. The great Edward Jenkins, who's now Pastor Edward Jenkins. I was treasurer and chaplain. Joyce Logan made such an impact upon gospel with the great James Bullard during the day that it was another pivoting point for me to move to another level in quartet, because she had such artists as the Mighty Clouds of Joy, and of course go back with Edwin Hawkins, Walter Hawkins, and just so many great artists. You know, so Joyce, I love you. Thank you so much, Dr. Joyce. And I'm just elated and excited to know that we all are still above ground.
That's right. And we thank God for that. And I want you to stay tuned in, because we're going to continue this interview in our next segment with Dr. Prez Blackmon, with our special feature of Gospel International Magazine Online with their history, the history of Dr. Prez Blackmon. Thank you for watching. Please continue to tune in, because this is just segment 1. You got to be here to see segment 2. God bless you. Remember, you can go online and view Gospel International Magazine. The publisher is Dr. Joyce Logan, and I am yours truly, Dr. Susie Jones. Got it.